Imagine standing in the ocean. At first, the water is at your ankles. Every small wave knocks you off balance. You're tense, alert, reacting. Then you walk farther out. Now the water is steady around your waist. The same waves hit, but they no longer control you. That difference? It's not the ocean that changed, it's your position in it. Money works the same way. There is a point where financial stress stops dictating every decision you make. And for most people, that point isn't $1 million. It isn't six figures. It isn't early retirement. It's much smaller. It's the moment you accumulate enough capital to stop being financially fragile. For many households, that number sits around $20,000. Not because $20,000 makes you wealthy, but because it makes you stable. And stability is where wealth actually begins. Let's break this down carefully. Fragility versus stability. Most people aren't broke because they lack income. They're broke because they're fragile. Fragile means one unexpected expense collapses the system. A transmission fails, a client pays late, hours get cut, rent increases. When you're financially fragile, every disruption feels existential. Your brain narrows its focus. It prioritizes short-term survival over long-term growth. You don't evaluate opportunities. You neutralize threats. That cognitive load is expensive. When you operate from fragility, you accept poor job offers, delay negotiations, avoid calculated risks, make purchases based on monthly payments instead of total cost. Stay in situations longer than you should. It's not laziness, it's bandwidth. Scarcity consumes processing power. Now consider what happens when you accumulate roughly 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid capital. You move from fragile to stable. You are no longer reacting to every wave, you are standing. That shift alone changes behavior more than any budgeting app ever will. Decision-making under pressure. Picture 2 employees in the same company. Same salary, same experience, same performance. One has $800 in savings, the other has $20,000. Their resumes are identical. Their negotiating power is not. When management introduces unpaid overtime, who pushes back? When a promotion opens in another department, who takes the interview risk? When a better opportunity appears in another city, who can afford the transition period? Capital is not just stored labor, it is stored courage. And once you understand that, $20,000 stops looking like a bank balance. It starts looking like leverage, the invisible engine of momentum. There's a mechanical principle at play here. In physics, starting motion requires more force than maintaining motion. Finance operates similarly. The first phase of saving is almost entirely driven by discipline. You are the engine. But once capital reaches a critical mass, returns begin contributing meaningfully. Let's use a simplified example. Assume an 8% annual return. At $2,000 invested, an 8% return generates $160 per year. Encouraging, but not transformative. At $20,000, 8% generates $1,600. Now your money is covering real expenses, insurance premiums, property taxes, half a month of rent. At $100,000, 8% produces $8,000 annually. At that point, your portfolio is equivalent to a part-time employee working quietly in the background. The strategy hasn't changed. Index funds remain index funds. Asset allocation remains asset allocation. What changes is scale. And scale is where compounding becomes visible. The first $20,000 is the ignition point. Before it, compounding feels theoretical. After it, compounding feels tangible. The shift from small decisions to big ones. When money is tight, attention zooms in. Brand versus generic. Streaming subscription. Coffee at home or cafe. These choices feel enormous because margins are thin. But once you establish stability, something subtle happens. Your focus zooms out. You start analyzing. Housing costs as a percentage of income. Transportation depreciation. Tax efficiency. Investment fees. Career upside. Consider two individuals who both optimize coffee spending. One rents an apartment consuming 45% of income. The other negotiated housing to 25%. The housing decision dwarfs the coffee decision by orders of magnitude. Yet scarcity forces attention toward the small. Stability frees you to manage the large. This is not about ignoring expenses. It is about reallocating mental capital toward decisions with exponential impact. Optionality creates opportunity. We often hear the phrase, money attracts money. It is not mystical. It is structural. When you have liquidity, you can invest in skill upgrades, cover a gap between jobs, fund relocation for better markets, seed a side business, acquire underpriced assets during downturns. During economic contractions, fragile households contract further. Stable households expand. Because downturns are discount seasons for those with reserves. Without reserves, downturns are disasters. The same event produces opposite outcomes depending on liquidity. That is the asymmetry $20,000 begins to create. The identity transformation. There is another layer people underestimate. To accumulate $20,000 from zero requires consistency, not brilliance. Consistency. You tracked spending, delayed gratification, resisted lifestyle creep, automated contributions, stayed invested during volatility. That repetition reshapes identity. You stop viewing yourself as someone trying to save. You become someone who saves. That distinction matters. Identity-based behavior persists. Motivation-based behavior fades. Once you internalize that you can build 5 figures, 6 figures becomes procedural. The hardest proof is self-proof, the critical mistake. Many people reach this milestone and immediately convert stability into consumption. A larger vehicle, a luxury vacation, a house beyond comfortable affordability. The reasoning sounds harmless. I've earned it. But understand this clearly. The first $20,000 is not excess. It is infrastructure. You would not tear down the foundation of a building to decorate the lobby. Yet people dismantle their liquidity for status upgrades every day. Transportation is one of the most common examples. A $700 monthly car payment invested at 8% over 30 years exceeds $500,000. That number is not theoretical. It is arithmetic. Vehicles depreciate. Assets appreciate. The distinction determines trajectories. Driving reliability while investing the difference compounds quietly. Financing image compounds stress. Career acceleration effect. Here's an under-discussed reality. Financial security alters professional presence. When you are not desperate for income, you communicate differently. You negotiate compensation more confidently. You decline misaligned projects. You pursue high-variance opportunities with asymmetric upside. Employers sense confidence. Markets reward leverage. And paradoxically, the less you need the paycheck, the more valuable you often become. Because performance improves when fear decreases. The true transformation at $20,000 is strategic thinking. Instead of asking, how do I survive this month? You ask, how do I structure the next decade? You begin evaluating tax-advantaged accounts, asset allocation diversification, geographic arbitrage, income scalability, entrepreneurial optionality. These are not emergency conversations. They are strategic ones. And strategy requires stability. Is $20,000 wealth? No, it is velocity. Once capital reaches sufficient scale, time becomes your primary ally. The second $20,000 arrives faster, then the third. Eventually, returns begin covering contributions. And one day, contributions become optional. That arc begins with resilience. Not luxury, not status, not lifestyle inflation. Resilience. Most people chase visible wealth. Few build invisible stability. But invisible stability is what produces visible wealth. If you are below this threshold, focus on liquidity before complexity. If you are above it, protect it aggressively and let compounding operate. Because once you are no longer financially fragile, you are no longer playing defense. And wealth is built on offense. If this breakdown clarified how financial thresholds actually work, subscribe for deeper analysis on money, leverage, and long-term capital strategy.